Welcome to day 5 of Readvent. Today's story is called If Paul Had Never Existed. Paul trudged slowly home from school with his head down. Muddy snow covered the sidewalk. Pelting rain crashed down in the headlights of the traffic. This December evening was as sad as Paul's heart. Today, everything had gone wrong. In the morning, he got angry with his mother. Then he got an F in a maths test. Finally, he quarrelled with Oliver, his best friend. There are some days when what? Paul had been talking out loud without realising it. Someone behind him had heard. Paul turned around and looked carefully at the stranger. Reassured by his curiously bright face, Paul continued, "When I wish I weren't alive. Besides, no one would miss me." "You think so?" the stranger asked with a smile. "I'd like you to play a little game with me. Imagine you had never existed." Paul arrived home and stood in the doorway, astonished. Where were the Christmas decorations? What had happened to the Christmas tree? Paul glanced into the living room and saw his mum with Mrs. Morrill, Oliver's mother. His mother's beautiful face was worn out with grief, and she suddenly looked very old. "My dear friend," said Mrs. Morrill, "you should set out a nativity scene. The Christmas manger brings such joy to a house." "Joy for whom?" sighed Paul's mother. "I couldn't have children. With or without a nativity scene, my house will never know happiness. But let's talk about you. How is your son Oliver?" Mrs. Morrill answered in a worried voice. "He doesn't have any friends, and that makes him so sad. I'm very worried about him." Paul stared wide-eyed, trying to understand. He turned toward the stranger who had been following him, but the mysterious man was looking at an old lady speaking to a policeman in the street. She seemed very upset. "What's happening?" Paul asked the stranger. "This woman lost her handbag. There was money in it, and more importantly, many precious mementos." "That's not true," Paul protested. "I remember that lady. Yesterday, I found her handbag on the bus and I returned it to her." You don't exist." "But it's true. If you didn't exist, someone would have to invent you." And before Paul's astonished eyes, the stranger let out a laugh as light as the peal of church bells. "Farewell, little Paul," he said, "and never forget that your life is a treasure." And with that, he vanished. When Paul went inside, he found the familiar nativity scene beneath the decorated Christmas tree. His mother came to greet him. Her face was once again young and carefree. "I'm sorry I was in such a bad mood this morning," mumbled Paul. "It's nothing, sweetheart. It's already forgotten. Did you have a good day?" "Not so bad," answered Paul, with a mysterious gleam in his eye. "I think I saw an angel."